Hiya, welcome back to Beer, Wood, Bigfoot, Ghost. My name's Matt, this is my channel, and I'll talk about anything that falls under one of those four categories: beer, wood, Bigfoot, ghost. Today we're going to talk ghosts or paranormal. So I'm going to give you some recommendations for some paranormal content that I think you should watch, whether it's on old school TV, current streaming services, or being done by YouTube creators today. I think it's important to note when anybody talks about something they heard or saw that they think is ghost related or paranormal, that you talk about what it is that they're experiencing. Okay, so in the paranormal investigative or ghost hunting field, a lot of people talk about evidence they collected. I think the term evidence is a bit strong of a term to use when talking about the paranormal. Instead, I think you should talk about ghost or paranormal as experiences, right? Either subjective or objective experiences. And very simply, subjective is something you experienced personally, maybe something you saw or heard, whether it's in your own home, which is kind of weird, or you're out on a ghost hunt, okay? Objective would be taking those same experiences and backing them up with something, whether that's video or audio recording, or maybe two or more persons having the same experience. So now we're going to talk about some paranormal investigative or ghost hunting shows and content that I'm going to recommend to you. Before I get into this list, I'm going to say a couple of things. One is I'm going to reiterate the fact that I don't consider this stuff evidence, the stuff that's in these shows, whether it's audio or video. I just think it's either subjective or objective experiences. That's again how I categorize this sort of thing. The second thing I want to talk about is what is called production value. Okay. Please understand that if you watch anything on television or the internet, that it's there to entertain you first and foremost, right? That's what I'm trying to do here with what my video channels. I'm trying to entertain you. I hope I'm accomplishing that, but who knows? But it's for entertainment value. And when you understand that everything comes from the perspective of entertainment, you have to understand what production value is. And what production value is video and sound editing that's being done in what's called post, okay, post production, where they're going to package what they do to make it very interesting and entertaining for you. Now, when you watch some of these shows, you're going to probably get the impression that they're on site at an alleged haunted location for anywhere from 6 to 12 hours for the most part. And now you're watching something on television or on YouTube or some other streaming service that's 30 minutes to an hour long. And so you know they've taken that 10 hours and they've drawn that down to 30 minutes to an hour. Okay. Well, that means they cut out all the boring stuff, right? The actual going on to a location and walking around for a camera for 10 hours can be a little tedious, right? So they're going to package this thing down to a smaller time frame so it's interesting to you when you watch it. Okay. The other thing that's going to happen is when they do the video editing and the audio editing, they're going to add stuff in there that's going to give you jump scares or spooky music or give you a general vibe that this place is actually haunted. Now, I'm not suggesting at all that they're faking their experiences or anything along those lines, okay? I'm sure that there are some content creators and some television shows that are guilty of that, but the ones I'm going to recommend to you, I think, are done with honesty and integrity. And I say that because over the last 2+ decades, I've watched dozens and dozens and dozens of different television shows, stuff that's on old traditional television, right? stuff that was on streaming services, and stuff that's currently on YouTube. And I think I'm a pretty good judge of what appears to be legitimate ghost hunting or paranormal investigations, okay? But even those, the ones I'm going to recommend to you, have production value, okay? It's entertainment first and foremost. That should not suggest at all that the people involved in these investigative groups are doing anything shady. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm saying is that in post production, it's going to be done in such a way that's entertaining for you. And when I talk about a couple of these different shows that had been on traditional television and are now on YouTube, I'll highlight the fact of what's different about that production value. Okay, so let's get into this list. This is my list, what I recommend. If I don't cover something that you enjoy to watch, hey, not trying to offend you at all. This is the stuff that I think is legitimate. I think it's honest in its approach, and I find it highly entertaining. So, old school television, we're going to talk about the OG, and that's Ghost Hunters. So, Ghost Hunters started back around 2004 and ran in one form or another all the way up to about 2023. And Ghost Hunters chronicled the paranormal investigations done by a group called the Atlantic Paranormal Society, or TAPS, that was formed by Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson. And they had a little team with them that some of the members changed over the years, but there was some consistency there as well. And what was great about Ghost Hunters, besides the fact that it's the original one that got me really interested in paranormal content, is that during the early seasons, they focused on going to people's homes, right? They would get calls from people who said, hey, we think we have a haunting. My children are scared. Can you send somebody out and let us know if what we're experiencing is real or not? So they did a lot of work in the first few seasons where they were in people's homes. And that was really interesting to see people describe things. Now, what was great about the TAPS team, from way in the beginning all the way towards the end when this show went out of production, was they spent a lot of time looking for the normal instead of the paranormal, meaning they would often listen to the stories being told by the homeowners, investigate themselves over a several-hour period, and try to debunk or disprove things that people were experiencing, right? Provide a logical explanation, whether that was plumbing, electric, animal infestation, say that 20 times, or that sort of thing. So that's one of the things that really appealed to me about the TAPS team, was the integrity I think they displayed when they were able to quickly go towards debunking something before they would label a location as haunted. All right, now what's great about Ghost Hunters, even though that show ended in 2023, is that one of its founding members, Jason Hawes, a couple years ago moved over to YouTube and started a channel under his own name, which you can watch today. And basically, Jason Hawes is doing exactly what he did for nearly 20 years on television, and that he's going out to locations and he's investigating anywhere from, I'm guessing, 8 to 15 hours. And sometimes he spends a couple of days at a location. And on this particular YouTube channel, under his name, he's there with a close friend of his named JV. And what's really interesting is you get a sense for what a real paranormal investigation feels and looks like, because it's stripped down. The production value that I talked about earlier is pretty much stripped away from what they're doing, right? There's editing, but there's not a lot of jump scare editing. There's not a lot of spooky music and that sort of stuff. There's enough there to hold your interest, but it's really, really stripped down. What I also like about what Jason Hawes is doing today is that if they hear something, if he and JV hear something and they capture it on audio, you'll see kind of the real-time editing as you're watching the show. And they'll enhance that audio once, twice, three times so you get a better idea of what they're hearing. You got to understand that if something's captured on a microphone or on video recording, that is probably not going to be as loud to you and I at home as it is to them while they're at that location. So it's great that they actually do that. Really, really enjoy what they're doing there. And what's really interesting is you got to understand every once in a while they'll turn off their cameras and show you that what they're doing, that investigative stuff, is in the pitch black, right? And it's really difficult for them to see. You're seeing, the camera work that's being done with night vision. So really great stuff. I'd highly recommend checking out Jason Hawes today. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is Kindred Spirits. So Kindred Spirits was on old school television from about 2016 to 2023, and that involved Amy Bruni and Adam Berry. Sorry, Adam, couldn't remember your last name. So Amy Bruni and Adam Berry, who are both alum from Ghost Hunters, right? They were on the TAPS team for years. And in 2016, they decided to venture out on their own and do Kindred Spirits. Now, what was unique about Kindred Spirits was they really spent a lot of time and effort studying the history and the backstory to the location and the people that lived there to try to find a plausible explanation for the haunting. Okay? And then they would go and do 1 or 2 days of actual investigation at the location. But they would try to figure out exactly what was happening there so they could explain that to the homeowners, and in most cases try to bring a level of comfort to the homeowners with their findings. Okay, so if you watch that show, and you can find it on different streaming services, it's really interesting to watch these two work together, because you can really tell that the two of them are close friends, and that they both have certain strengths that they bring to the table during their investigations. So highly entertaining, and again, I think they do it with a lot of integrity. So check out Kindred Spirits, wherever you can find it on one streaming service or another. Okay, so where are Amy and Adam today? Well, when Kindred Spirits ended, they did not move their content over to YouTube, at least as far as I could find. But I do know that Amy Bruni has a podcast called Haunted Road, and it's very interesting. You should check it out. And Adam Berry is doing a number of things. I've seen that he's out there doing personal appearances, and I think he's written a book about his experiences. So look for both their names and see what you can find that appeals to you. All right, next one I want to talk about is a show called Paranormal Lockdown. All right, so Paranormal Lockdown involved Nick Groff and also Katrina Weidman. Okay, and what was very, very unique about this show is they would go to a location and literally lock themselves in for 72 hours. So they would investigate by day and night, and they would stay on premises for 72 hours straight. And what's really interesting about that is think about if you live in a location or you work in a location which is allegedly haunted. And you describe to somebody your experiences. Well, if they show up for 5 hours to try to investigate and they come up with nothing, you got to scratch your head and go, well, is there nothing there, or is there something there that just didn't come out during the 5 hours that the team was on site, right? So the fact that they're there for 72 hours, that they're sleeping on premises in usually separate locations within that either house or building or otherwise, they are there for 72 hours, and they're like immersed in whatever is happening within this building, and they get some really, really great experiences there. So I believe Paranormal Lockdown ran from 2016 to 2019. So what happened to both Nick and Katrina post Paranormal Lockdown? Well, Nick Groff does a show called Death Walker. He both produces and stars in that, and I think that Death Walker has been on a number of streaming services. For you can look for that as well. And then Katrina Weinman. Okay, so she does a current show on YouTube with her best friend, or what I assume is her best friend, Heather Taddy, and it's called Travel the Dead. All right, sorry. So Travel the Dead is on YouTube and it's got current content. And it's great because you really get to see how the close relationship between the two is brought forward in their investigations. So some things about Travel the Dead, which I find very interesting. One is it's really stripped down production value. Okay, so if you go back to Paranormal Lockdown and to a show that both Katrina and Heather appeared on years earlier called Paranormal State. And from what I can tell from that show is the two of them had met on the campus of Penn State University, joined that group, and then it ended up going into a television production for a couple of years. So you can still find that on some of the streaming services. So let's go back to Travel the Dead. What I really like about their approach is that they are very clear in telling you the difference between subjective and objective experiences. In fact, they highlight that in nearly every episode that, yeah, we heard something, saw something, but that's more subjective than it is objective. In fact, if you really want kind of a master class on really deep diving the experience that you had, go look for a couple of episodes they did in March of 2025 at the Madison Seminary. So there's an owner operator of Madison Seminary, and they're on site for, I don't know, 10, 15 hours or whatever investigating, and they get a lot of audio evidence. And then they deep dive that audio evidence to try to determine if what they've captured is subjective, as in they're reading into what they hear, or is there actually something being said during those audio recordings? So I call it a master class because I really like the balance they bring to taking an honest look at what they've captured and giving you both sides of the equation about how you should look at that, those experiences and the information they capture. So again, check out Travel the Dead. Great show. Really enjoy it. And then I'm going to talk about Destination Fear. Okay, so Destination Fear ran on television from 2019 to 2023. All right, great show. So what is it about? Okay, Destination Fear, the old television show, involved four really close childhood friends from Minnesota. And I have to point that out because that's my home state. In fact, I think we probably grew up from each other maybe 20 miles away, I'm guessing. And actually, of the four, two of them are siblings, right? Dakota and Chelsea are siblings. And then there are two really close childhood friends and neighbors are Alex and Tanner. And I digress here for a second, but my wife and I also refer to Destination Fear and their new show on YouTube called Project Fear as AKA Chelsea Screams. Because you're going to see a lot of that, especially in the old Destination Fear. And I say that with all honor and respect to Chelsea and the work that she's done on this show for years. So, Destination Fear. The four of them basically take epic road trips in an RV across the country to alleged haunted locations, right? And most of those are big buildings, abandoned buildings, that sort of thing. Now, what's unique about them is exactly what it says in the title, fear. They're trying to, in every episode, every location, to push the limits of their personal fear, right? So put themselves in situations where they get scared, right? And to see what their tolerance is for that fear that they're experiencing, right? And you can really see a maturation between when they started Destination Fear, moved over to Project Fear on YouTube, and where they are today, and about how they've been able to handle that kind of pushing to the limits over the years. Okay. So, in order to kind of push the limit of their fear while they're on location, they'll often do solo investigations where they go in by themselves. And in every investigation, usually in the early morning hours for a 4 or 5 hour period, they'll do separate investigations, the four of them, right? So they'll draw locations out of a hat, and then they'll go isolate themselves there for 4 to 5 hours, which they call going to bed or sleep time, and they never do because there's always something happening. And the theory is when you isolate yourself in an alleged haunted location, that you're probably going to open yourself up to two things: more that the haunting may occur because you're spread out in different locations, so you're going to have kind of quadruple your ability to pick up on something, and also your fear is going to be ramped up a bit because you're all by yourself in the dark, right? And if you've never been on a paranormal investigation, these things are done in the pitch black. Now, you may have a little bit of a flashlight with you. You can shine around to see where you're walking so you don't trip over things. And you have the little viewfinder screen on your video camera that you're using. But generally, they're in the pitch black. We don't see that at home for the most part. What we see is video footage because it's being done with night vision technology. Okay. So Destination Fear is great. So when Destination Fear ended in 2023, the four of them decided, Dakota, Chelsea, Tanner, and Alex decided to launch a Kickstarter campaign and move over to YouTube. And they did very successfully. And it's called Project Fear today. In fact, I'm wearing fear gear. So let me stand up here so you can see it. Right? This is stuff that they sell. Let me just pan down here a little bit here. It actually says Project Fear at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that or not. And this kind of bone duck or haunted duck thing is their branding. And so this is called Fear Gear. And you can go to Project Fear's website and you can order some of their apparel, like my wife did for me for my birthday. So Project Fear is phenomenal. They got great Minnesota nice sensibilities, the four of them. They're a lot of fun to watch. Even though they're on YouTube now, they did add in some production value there. So you get some jump scares and different things like that. But I don't think that distracts from the work that they're doing. Now, yes, they're doing paranormal investigations, but they still focus on that kind of fear thing, if you will, right? All right, great. So that's Project Fear. I'm going to do one honorable mention here. There's a YouTuber named John Wolfe, Wolfe. And John Wolfe does basically a number of videos on paranormal, ghost hunting, debunking, right? He focuses his effort on looking at these YouTube creators that put out stuff that's like top 5 scariest videos or top 10 scariest videos. And he goes through and shows you how a lot of this stuff could just be faked, okay? He's not telling you 100% it's faked, but he's showing you how video editing and some audio editing is being done, and that you may not be able to trust some of that content that you're seeing. So I think it's very important that when you're looking at paranormal, ghost hunting, investigative stuff, that you remain balanced in your approach, right? You look for those things that can be explained, right, or otherwise debunked. And John Wolfe, I think, does a real nice job of that. I think he kind of balances out this field, and so check him out. My wife and I really enjoy his content as well. All right, so closing remark. Again, over the last 2 decades, I have watched dozens and dozens and dozens of different productions, right? Stuff that was on old school television, stuff that you can still find streaming today, and current content being done on YouTube. And I recommended the ones that I did to you because I think they have integrity and they're honest in their approach. Okay. That doesn't mean there isn't others out there, but I have watched dozens and dozens and dozens of different productions, and these are the ones that I recommend. You may like something else. If it didn't appear on my recommendation list, hey, that's okay, right? If I get comments below that says, what about this show? What about this show? I may not answer those because some of these shows just really, I mean, is every place got a demon? Do you always get possessed at every location? I mean, come on, use some common sense here. And I'm really not into what I call the floppy hair boy band stuff either, right? I know that's very entertaining for like the younger people to consume on YouTube, just not my thing. I look for more of what I call old school paranormal investigative content. All right, enough said. I'm going to do what I always do in every one of my videos. I'm going to leave you with two thoughts before I leave you. First, please support your local breweries and tap rooms, especially in this economy today. These are great businesses making great beer. Go out there, spend some time, make some friends, just enjoy your local breweries and tap rooms. Unfortunately, in this day and age, because of the economy we're in and a number of other reasons, which I highlighted in one of my beer episodes, is that we're losing these things every couple of years. So go out there, be a patron, give them your support. And the second thing is, hey man, the struggle is real. Whatever you're going through, whatever it is that you're personally experiencing, it's real, okay? Whatever roadblocks or life challenges have been put in your way, they're real to you. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Let you know there's people out there to understand. You know, don't hold it in, okay? Don't bottle it up. Go talk to your family, talk to your friends, go seek a healthcare professional to kind of get this out, whatever it is that's bothering you, okay? Support your local breweries and tap rooms, and the struggle is real. My name is Matt. This is Beer, Wood, Bigfoot, Ghost, where I talk about anything in one of those four categories: beer, wood, Bigfoot, ghost. Thanks for watching today. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Enjoy.